Welcome to the Bike Life podcast by Warmshowers Foundation, where we will be sharing knowledge, experience, tools, and stories of touring cyclists and hosts from around the world. I'm Tara Lee, the woman behind the scenes at Warmshowers Foundation, the leading platform for cyclists looking for hosts and to connect with a passionate international community. Find out more by visiting us at Warmshowers.org. Now, on to the show.
Hey everyone, this is Jerry Kopak, the host of Bike Life, coming to you from the mountains of Breckenridge, Colorado. Fall is in the air, but today I'm talking with Justin Wolfenberg and two of his kids who together spent this past summer cycling the TransAmerica Route from Oregon to Virginia. Hey guys, welcome to Bike Life.
Welcome, glad to be here.
All right.
Yes.
So I want to start with Leila and maybe have her and her brother introduce themselves. So how about maybe name, which I already gave away, but maybe name, age, and I don't know, how about your favorite trail snack from this summer on your journey?
I'm Leila. I'm 17, and the absolute favorite was Cliff Bars for the journey.
Yes. What flavor?
Yeah.
Crunchy peanut butter.
Yes. Okay. Henry, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Henry and I'm 18. And trail mix would definitely be my favorite. I've always loved trail mix and I ate tons of trail mix on that trip. So that was a lot of fun.
Okay. So did you make your own trail mix? And if so, what was in it?
I have made my own trail mix, but for the bike trip, we were just buying like peanuts, or we were buying pre-made trail mix that had like peanuts and raisins and M&Ms and that kind of stuff in it.
Yes, the M&Ms are the key. That's been my favorite as well.
Yes.
Justin, no pressure. Do you wanna play along in this game?
Yeah, I would say one of our favorite things we did, at least snack-wise, was often we would bike and it would be so crazy hot. And we had to bike to the campsite with no, obviously, refrigeration. So we would have a pint of ice cream right on the sidewalk as we walked out the grocery store. That's just something civilized people don't do, but is perfectly acceptable on a bike trip. And it was so fun. Right out of the container. Yes.
So, favorite flavor?
Anything kind of chocolate peanut butter was anything like that was fantastic.
Got it. Now, I know that you all have written a blog, and I read some entries in your blog, and there was definitely a ice cream for dinner theme in a couple of days. Has that stuck around since you've been home?
No, we had to go back to normal civilized diets. So we have not continued that. You know, when you're biking 8 hours a day, you have different set of calorie rules.
Yeah, that is the beauty of the bike packing, right? You can kind of just eat whatever because you just need to get calories in.
Yes.
But ice cream is still part of the dessert menu, maybe?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Justin, what was it about this summer, 2024, that made this the right time for an adventure? Was it something you've been scheming or planning for a while?
Yeah, I've always just had that kind of back pocket goal of saying, man, I'd love to go on the bike across the country. But, we had a young family for many years and it just didn't make sense. And this year I turned 50. Henry turned 18 and graduated high school, and Leila was 17. And I went to my wife and I said, I've got a crazy idea. If you say no, I won't even breathe another word of it. But I'd love to bike across the country with Henry and Leila. And she's surprisingly said, I'm for it. I'll support it. And I have an incredible wife. And I went to Henry and Leila and I was like, I'm not doing it unless they come with me. And they both wholeheartedly agreed. And then off the planning went.
Yes. And so speaking of planning, what goes into planning a trip like this with your kids?
Yeah, we kind of had to have a count the cost talk. Like, we can't just show up on this thing and go on a trip. We have to train for the next year. So for us, we have winters here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So that meant we joined the YMCA. That was like the one place we could find economical spinning classes. Like if all three of us went to spinning classes at those high-end gyms, it would have been like $800 a month.
Oof.
So for $100 a month, our whole family was able to join the Y. And we had this fantastic group of old, sweet Catholic ladies from Cincinnati that we did our spinning classes with, and they were a hoot. So we ended up doing a lot of that in the winter. And then obviously we were doing bike riding on the roads in the fall and summers. Yeah.
And then once the time came, you felt like you were ready, you were trained?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as always, I wish I would have done a little bit more training, but I think we had just enough to get us through.
So you spent pretty much every day, all day together for what, 2 months?
Yeah, just over 2 months. It was a couple of days over 2 months. Yeah.
That's incredible. Did you feel like you evolved and grew as a family?
Yeah, I think there's something that that only can happen when things are really difficult. Of course, there was times we all felt irritated. They probably never felt irritated with me, but we all felt irritated with each other at times. But I thought we were really good and respectful and kind to each other. So that made it work. But there's just something that happens when you have to dig really, really deep. And I think what I said I most appreciated about my kids on the trip is I never had to motivate them. You know, they acted as adults on this trip, and they were so motivated to do whatever it took. You know how these things are. There are some days it's freezing cold, raining. Some days you make a wrong turn and you're 20 miles off, and you just want to lose it. And they never did. They were just fantastic to be a part of that. And so I really respected their character and how they handled all these things.
Wow, I love that. So I want to sort of pivot and talk about experience and gear and the actual tour itself. So, Leila, besides going to the Y and doing spin class, what was your experience with biking and camping before this trip?
It was very fun for me. I really love doing athletic things, and I had been on one trip where it was kind of backpacking and biking at the same time. And so I had a little bit of experience, and it was fun. And so, yeah.
What was your longest outdoor bike ride before this?
It was a weekend. It was pretty much training to go across America.
Okay.
My brother and my dad and I, we biked to Yellow Springs, about 80 miles from Cincinnati, and stayed just for the night there, and then came back the next day to Cincinnati.
And after that trip, you're like, yeah, I think I can do this every day for 2 months.
It wasn't quite like that, but yeah.
Was there anything that along the way, you wish you had brought with you, or did you think you had everything you needed?
I definitely wish I had brought better gear for like snow and like hail. Yes, yeah.
You had snow?
Yeah, I did. It snowed on a mountain we went.
Dang, snow in the summer. You can't plan for everything, I guess, right?
No.
Henry, what about you? What was your longest bike ride? Same experience? That one overnighter?
Yeah, I would say I had very little experience, just that one trip that Leila was talking about. I've done some like 60, 80-mile rides before, but I have never done any like bike packing trips. So
okay, so you've done some longer rides.
Yeah.
Okay. So you felt pretty strong and pretty ready for this trip?
Yeah, I think so. I was definitely feeling it at first. The first couple of weeks, I was like, man, this is hard, but I was definitely ready, I think.
How many tents did you guys have?
We just had one for all three of us. It's a 3-person tent. We all squeezed in.
Since you're the young, strong 18-year-old, you carried the tent, right?
Yeah, I had most of the gear on my bike. So
smart move, Justin. Way to go.
Yes, he was the workhorse. We used it.
So, Henry, anything that you felt like maybe you were missing out by not having on your bike, or did you have all the right gear besides snow gear?
Yeah, I think we had most of the right gear. I think I'm sure there was a few like small things, but not really. I feel like we were pretty well prepared. We did a ton of extra stuff we wanted to send back. Like we met up with my mom halfway through and we gave her a few things, but it wasn't like we had tons of things we overbrought and there wasn't a ton of things we needed. So I think overall we did pretty well on the packing.
So you weren't carrying a pair of like snow boots or anything like that you had to get rid
No,
of. Okay, good.
no.
So Justin, did you find that each person took on a role throughout the trip? Like, was someone in charge of setting up the tent? I don't know, maybe boiling water or comic relief? Like, how did everyone's role sort of evolve?
Well, unfortunately, I think I was the comic relief because I'm like can be an absent-minded professor, and I think I lost my wallet maybe 3 times on the trip,
Oof.
and we would end up having to have it mailed to us ahead of but someone would find it, and so anyways, unfortunately I played that role, losing things more than I care to admit. But we ended up with like Leila wrote the blog, and it was really neat to see her develop as a writer, and Henry did our video blog, and he did kind of his video things, something both of them had never done before, so it was really neat to see them do that. But we definitely had some division of labor. Henry actually ended up being the cook, so he would be do all the cooking for us, and then I would do some of the cleaning up, and Leila would be assisting getting the tent set up and things like that. So when we got some of those things down, it made things go just smoothly as we all kind of fit in our little roles.
Nice. And did everyone kind of stick to those roles throughout the trip?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
We were pretty content. I was happy to do the dishes if Henry was cooking. So
I have that kind of rule in my life too. I think the cook doesn't have to clean.
yes.
How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah,
Pretty good.
Yeah, I like that role.
Okay. So Leila, how's your brother's cooking?
It was a little bland at first, but he really got the hang of it as like within 2 weeks we were like finding foods that were very filling but yet simple.
Okay. So what was the favorite meal around the camp that he made?
It's hard to say.
So many good ones?
Yeah, it got way better at the end, but one of the first meals we had that was actually filling and good was ramen noodles with spicy beans, and like it had like some sort of meat in it, and we had like 3 or 4 packs of like ramen noodles in that like little cook stove pot, but it was filling.
Okay. All right. So here's something for the kids. You guys all spent a ton of time together. So Leila, while we're talking with you, was there anything about your dad or your brother that you learned that maybe you didn't know before as a result of this trip?
Well, I think I realized how much my dad could lose his things on the trip.
He didn't display that in his normal life at home?
Well, like it was very, very like seldom. Like on the trip, it was a lot more frequent than it was at home.
Okay.
But I learned, I don't know, that just like my dad and Henry are like very tough and like very, very like they were like really embrace like challenges and going through hard things together. So
I love that. So they kind of bonded over that adversity at times.
yeah.
Henry, what about you? Did you learn anything new about your sister or your dad that maybe you didn't know?
Yeah, like my sister Leila did all of writing all the blogs for us, and I did not realize how good of a writer she was, and that was really cool to see her write all those blogs, and I thought they were really good, so that was cool.
Yeah, I've read a lot of those entries, and you're right, they are really good. And at the end of our show, we'll post a link to the blog so everyone else can check these out as well. Justin, anything else you learned about your kids that maybe you didn't already know?
Yeah, I would say, I think sort of what I referenced, that when it really, really got tough, they showed up.
Nice.
And that's something you just don't know. You don't know what it's like day 30 when you're running out of water, you're running out of food. You don't know if you're going to make it to the campsite. And they just have what it takes to dig deep in their souls. And that was a treasure I'll never forget.
Yeah, and a lot of that adversity and that grit you can't teach in a lot of ways, right?
Mhm.
You just
No,
have it.
they had it in them. That was neat to see. Really neat.
So I'm curious, with the results of this trip, it sounds like everyone had a good trip. You have other kids, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we got three other kids at home, or
Okay,
I'm sorry, four other kids at home. Yeah.
and they're younger, right?
Yes,
So is this
correct.
going to be part of the curriculum going forward with the younger kids? Were they all jealous?
I think we'll see. I've learned not to make bombastic promises about 10 years from now, but my two boys
Okay.
are 8 and 9. And
Okay.
so we'll see what happens 10 years from now if we rekindle it and go for it again. So it's on
Excellent.
the table. Yes. We
All
may
right.
take some smaller bike trips as a whole family between now and then. So, yeah.
So were the younger kids kind of envious or like, oh man, that sounds so cool. I wish I could have gone.
Yeah, I think so. I think they were envious and it probably enjoyed their beds and the air conditioning and things like that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, wow, what a gift that you had with your kids this summer. Like, I'm just trying to imagine if I had the opportunity as a kid in the 80s and 90s to bike across the country with my dad and my brother. Like that would have been amazing. So very envious of this experience with you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a gift.
So, Leila, just curious, what did your friends think about this adventure? Did they think it was crazy? Was it silly? What were their thoughts?
They were really supportive. They like constantly were checking up, being like, "Oh, hey, how's the journey going?"
Yeah.
And they were just very supportive and encouraging. When I first told them about it, they're like, "Oh, that's Layla for you. No big deal."
Because you're known to do crazy adventure stuff like this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So they were probably reading along on your blog and felt like they were right there with you.
yeah.
So were you bummed when it ended? Were you ready to be home, or were you ready to keep going?
Mixed feelings.
Okay.
I didn't want the adventure, like the adventurous feeling of it to end.
Yeah.
But I was ready to get back to my normal life.
Okay. Henry, what about you? Were you ready to keep going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun and I wanted to keep going, but I was also glad to get back home too. But it was a sad parting with the trip, kind of.
Yeah, right. So you just graduated. What were your friends doing this summer while you're off cycling through the country?
Uh, they were all working and getting ready for college and stuff.
And you
Yeah.
thought like, yeah, I had a pretty good summer.
Yep.
All right. So fun fact, you guys were the first guests from the show that I've had a pleasure to actually host in my home. So besides your obviously incredible experience in Breckenridge, what were some of your favorite warm showers experiences along the way? Anyone?
Yeah, it's such a neat. Yeah, I'll start and I'll let them add on. I would say we started this trip. We had hoped we would meet some interesting people, but we knew we would see beautiful scenery, and that we did. But the tapestry and the beauty of the humans we met across the way outweighed the beauty of the landscape. And that's something I'll never forget. Because when you're on these trips, you're so vulnerable. Like I remember once we were pulling into some town, I think we were in Montana, it all blurs together. It was cold and rainy, and we pulled into this small town and we were far away from anything else. Everything was closed. Everything. Not even the gas station had a sign on open. It was like open Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're like, what? We're here Tuesday. Like nothing was open. We had no dinner, nothing. And it was like just you could see the melancholy on our faces just overtaking. And some lady walks out her door and is like, how are you guys? We're like, oh, we're cold and hungry. Do you know where we can get anything to eat? And she's like, no, everything's shut down in this little town. She's like, hold on, I'll meet you at your campsite in 30 minutes. And her boyfriend brought us dinner, and we had dinner at our campsite with them. And they told us stories about their biking adventures. And we just met the most wonderful people, you included as well. Like it was just so fun. It was such a highlight, Yeah.
Layla, what about you? Did you have anything that sticks in your mind for a really memorable experience?
Yeah. When, like, with the Warm Showers host, like, you get a warm shower for free, and cyclists would be like, oh yeah, you can camp in our backyard. But what I didn't expect was how many times warm shower hosts would be like, no, don't set up your tent, come on in the house, and we got beds all ready for you, and we'll cook you dinner so that you become stuffed. And I didn't expect that, and that was wonderful and really amazing.
Was it nervous at all just to go and sleep in a stranger's house, or did you feel pretty comfortable with that?
I think it was like I was a little on edge, like maybe the first 2 times, but I was kind of tired too, so it didn't really cross my mind too much.
Sometimes fatigue has a way of taking over, for sure.
Yeah.
Henry, what about you? Give me a good memory from this experience, a good takeaway.
Yeah. I remember one of the warm showers. So we were in somewhere in, I think Montana it was, and we were just, we went. This guy's like, I live 2 miles up the mountain. I'll pick you up right on the trail. So he picked us up in our pickup truck, which was super awesome because it's like a gravel road, and that would have been like a nightmare to try and ride our bikes up. So he picked us up, and he's living. He has this mansion on the side of the mountain, and it's like super nice. They cook us dinner, and like we each have our own like queen bed. There's like 3 extra guest bedrooms, and
Goodness.
Gets us breakfast and everything. And he's like, the host there was just like super nice and told great stories. So that was a lot of fun.
And so you said that was in Montana?
Yeah, somewhere in Montana. I can't remember exactly where, but
so relatively early on in your journey, because you guys started in Oregon, right? So it sounds like it set the tone for a really good experience.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Where was it when you guys got snowed on? Was it Montana?
It was right as we were crossing into Montana. Like, I think it was over Lolo Pass, which I believe is the top of the mountain. Is like where you cross into Montana from Idaho.
Okay.
And that was where we got snowed on. Okay. And that was very cold.
You get warm when you're pedaling uphill, but then downhill it becomes just frigid, right?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad going up, but once we started going down, we were really cold.
Right. So who was in charge of navigation? Was that you or your dad? Or was it Leila?
That was my dad.
Okay.
He handled all of that. I didn't even really touch the maps much at all.
How did he do? Did he get you guys lost, or did you stay on track?
He did really well.
Okay.
We very rarely got lost or went off the route or anything like that. So yeah, it was good.
So Justin, was the Trans Am sort of always one of your bucket list items?
Absolutely, it was. And yeah, I can't believe we did it. When we finished, it was so emotional. I just started tearing up. I was like, somewhat didn't realize the weight I would feel, the responsibility of taking 2 of my kids all the way across the country,
Yeah.
And one of the stories that kind of ties in the people and the adventure and the setbacks was Henry, being 18, has a lot of testosterone and not all the wisdom to go with it. And so he was going down one of these winding hills in Kentucky and went off a cliff at 40 miles an hour and fell 30 feet down. And we were in Appalachia, Kentucky at this point. And we didn't even know he was off the hill until 10 minutes later, he regained consciousness and called us. And I, just as a parent, that's obviously your worst nightmare. And I said, Henry, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm okay. So anyways, Leila and I instantly turned back and we biked back up the hill to find him. And he had crawled back up the 30 feet to the side, blood coming out of his ear, swollen face, just a nightmare scenario. And his front tire looked like completely destroyed, wobbled, And I was like, man, your bike doesn't work. We're going to have to take you to the hospital. This guy pulls off the road and says, you need some help? I said, yeah, we need some help. We got to find a bike shop. His wheel's broken. And he looks at it. His forearms were full of grease, but the size of tree trunks. And he took the wheel and just bent it with his bare hands using his wheel well and his car back into shape, And it was the most unbelievable thing. And then we met other people that literally, this is one of the places we met rich people that were so kind, and then poor people that were so kind. And we had another couple take us to the hospital that their cars they had to, like, it took 20 minutes to start a car because they had to do all this funky stuff under the engine to get it going. And they still took us to the hospital, and then a local church who doesn't do this opened their doors and let us stay at their church. And so we just, I don't know, all of those kind of things that we experienced were just so incredible. And Henry's determination, he got stitches that night. And the next morning, I was like, Henry, we can rest as many days as we need. And the next morning, he's like, I'm ready to go. And off we went,
I mean,
so
he's 18, right?
I know. It was, I thought for sure, and because I had other kids and a wife at home and a job back here, I didn't have the luxury a lot of people have. So we had to kind of keep on a pace,
Sure.
Yeah.
So I love that story. I just love how amazing humanity is.
Yes.
And I've done a fair bit of bike traveling myself. And it seems like no matter where I've gone, no matter where I am, people may talk different, they may look different, but in my experience, people are just people. They're kind, they're generous, and they're just wonderful. So I'm so glad that you had a very similar experience as that. That's amazing. And it probably scared the heck out of you too.
Yes, it did.
Until he became conscious again, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Henry, tell me about this little corner sounds like you blew through, or how did this happen?
Yeah, I was just going really fast down the hill, and it was one of those blind corners where you can't see how sharp it turns, and it turned a lot sharper than I was expecting, and I kind of panicked and just didn't turn at all, and just went straight off the edge.
Do you remember anything about the impact? It sounds like you're unconscious.
No, I was conscious. I didn't black out or anything, but I kind of just landed on my back at the bottom, and then I kind of carried my bike and my stuff back up to the top of the road, and like some of my panniers had like gone flying down the hill. So I had to like drag all that back up, and then I got to the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had originally, I didn't realize like how badly I was hurt. Or how badly I'd crashed. So I thought I could just like put my panniers back on, get back on my bike, and keep riding. But when I saw my bike, I was like, oh, that's not good. And then that's when I called my dad.
Got it. What was the extent of your injuries?
I was like, my back was hurting a little bit, and it didn't start hurting right away, and hurt my leg a little bit. But like after a couple days, those things started to went away. But the first day of riding after that crash was kind of painful.
Okay. But no collarbones or wrist or anything like that?
Yeah, nothing. No broken bones or anything like that. Yeah.
Good stuff. Like, I got to tell you, I'm on your team. I love going downhill fast. So I've been there. So yeah, I'm glad you're okay. But I can definitely relate to just going downhill fast because it's fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess I kind of want to transition to, we already talked about some of the things that have gone right, things that have gone wrong. Was there anything else that you thought to yourself, Justin, like, I guess we don't need to talk about this, but well, anyways, what would you have done if things didn't work out that way? You said like you got a fixed amount of time and you couldn't just sit things out. So you had to get back to work. Like, were you thinking like, hey, this might be the end of the trip?
Yeah, there was a few moments that, it's one of those things. It's like in marriage, you try to never think about divorce ever. So like quitting was never even thought about for us. So we were like, we didn't even think about quitting. And so it was always how we're going to solve the problem and keep hope alive. And so that really kept it. If we had to quit, or we would have, it's kind of, I don't know. We didn't hit that point, but we never hit a point where I was like, oh, we're not going to survive this. We're going to quit. The bike crash, and then when Leila's bike got stolen, she should tell that story. Were the two probably low points of the whole trip. but both of those we were able to, miraculously bounce back from. So.
And Henry, you never thought about tapping out?
No, never.
Okay.
I really wanted to finish the trip.
Awesome. That is some impressive resilience. So, Leila, what's this I hear about your bike getting stolen?
Yeah, we were all in Pueblo, Colorado, the halfway point of the journey, and we decided to take a rest day. Just to like have some alone time because you're squished together for like pretty much the entire ride.
Yeah.
So I was at a bubble tea store, and I'm writing up blogs on my phone. Henry and my dad are 3 miles away on the other side of town, and so I'm by myself. But at this bubble tea store, there's no restroom, so I'm trying to find a restroom. I end up going to a gas station, and so I go in and I come back out, and my bike is gone.
How long?
It
like 2 minutes?
Yeah, I was in there for like 2 minutes, and it's just gone. And so I'm like thinking like, oh, I know I put it right here. Like this wasn't some absent-minded thing I usually do. So I like tell the manager who like runs into the office who is looking at the footage, and I'm like outside asking people if they've seen a bike getting stolen, and there's like a bunch of people around, but nope, they weren't paying any attention to their surroundings.
Jeez.
So I'm calling my dad, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, Dad, I have a confession to make, and
Oh, no.
and my dad's like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll be there as fast as I can. You should try calling the police. And so I do that, and the police tell me to file an online report. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I do that, but you're supposed to be 18. And I was 16 at the time. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to say I'm 18. And I filed it, and they said, okay, we can get to this issue in about 3 to 6 days. And I'm like, well, I don't have 3 to 6 days. So the manager comes out. He's looked at all the footage. He says, oh, yeah, we've seen this guy around before, and basically gives a description. So I'm like, and then, I thanked him and was sat outside waiting for my dad. My dad comes in and like presses the manager for more answers. And the manager gives him a little more descriptions. They say, oh, his name's Anthony. He's a local around here. He's pretty much a regular customer and seen around the gas station a lot. So the manager then goes on and says he took the bike off towards Motel 6. And Motel 6 is like 2,000 feet behind the hotel, the gas station. And so my dad and I are slowly making our way around, and we're asking like a bunch of homeless people, like, hey, do you know where Anthony is? Because Anthony's like within the homeless circle. And they're all like, no, sir. And they're like looking down at their feet and like avoiding eye contact at all costs. And we're like, So my dad changes his tactic, and the next person we come to, he says, hey, do you know where Anthony is? I owe him some money. And like the guy immediately perks up and is like, ooh, So the guy says that Anthony's at Motel 6, but he doesn't know which room he's at. So we're heading off towards Motel 6. And I'm like right by the parking lot entrance in case Anthony doesn't like try to sneak out. And my dad's on his bike circling around Motel 6 using the money tactic and asking people. And finally, one guy walking around, he points to another guy in like a Kroger electric wheelchair that he like got from Kroger. And the guy says to the guy in the wheelchair is like the guy you want to talk to and he's the one that knows where everybody lives in the rooms. So my dad goes up to him, and my dad takes all the cash out of his wallet, which is like $40. And my dad goes, I will give you all of this if you can get my daughter's bike back. And the guy goes, can I have the money in advance? And my dad goes, no, you cannot. And so the guy goes, wait right here. He goes around the corner, and he comes back a minute later with my bike. My dad hands him the money, and we like zip out of there.
Wow. That is a crazy story with a wonderful ending and genius tactic, Justin. How'd you come up with that one?
I have no idea. I've never been in that situation before. I credit to a level of desperation of going, we really need this bike back because we've got to complete this trip, Wow. So it just happened. Yeah.
Man, way to push through and make it happen. That's incredible. So outside of getting your bike stolen and crashing your bike and getting back on your bike with not being concussed, if there's some families out here listening to this story, and I know there are, what would you tell other parents who are thinking about doing a bike tour with their kids?
Yeah, I would say it's a high risk, high reward deal. And the thing I would just say to myself in my head a lot was better together,
Oh, I love that.
And so I just had a vision of us finishing this thing, and any inconveniences or irritations or struggles along the way would be minuscule compared if we could finish this thing together. And we did. And so that I had a vision of us finishing this thing, and 20 years from now, 30 years from now, them telling their kids about it, their and so all of that just made it worth it. I would say it's absolutely worth it, but you just have to transform your thinking. Day one on this trip, it was pouring down rain for us.
Oh no.
Ice 50 degrees day one. And it was that way for the first 3 days, So, and I was like, okay, I'm shifting my mindset to survival. And you just do it's been a while since I'd been in that much survival for that long, but, you just do it, and you can. And there's I found that there was a certain contentment in not having a lot of all I wanted to do, honestly, was survive to the next day. But that's not a terrible way of living. It sounds terrible, but there's a contentment in that. There was none of us cared about politics. None of us cared about world peace. We enjoyed the people we met and lived really in the moment. And it was a really special time. Yeah. Very different. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I love that sentiment. And I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time today to share your story. Are there any ways for our listeners out there to connect with you or maybe learn more about your adventure?
Yeah, just through our blog or Henry's YouTube channel out there. You can send us a message that way. We'd love to connect with any families that are thinking about doing some bike tripping. Yeah,
and we've got links to those we'll post in our show notes. And with that, I want to say, everyone out there, thanks for listening to my conversation today with Justin Wolfenberg and his 2 kids, Henry and Leila. And if you enjoy our show, give us a like, a share on your social channels, or maybe just tell your friends. These stories hopefully will inspire you to set off on your own bicycle adventure and maybe make the world feel a little bit smaller, one pedal stroke at a time. My name is Jerry Kopak, and until next time, keep riding.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed making it. Wherever you are listening, please leave us a rating and a review, as it helps us reach more cyclists and hosts around the world. Visit us at Warmshowers.org to become a part of our community, or on Instagram at Warmshowers_org. If you would like to be a guest on the show or submit a question, please make sure to email us at podcast@warmshowers.org.